2 of session 1. Thank you very much. Ambassador Singh, may I please continue? May I please request you to continue moderating the session? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's had a good lunch. You have enough energy to go on, because this is going to be a very interesting session. We have a session in which we have 4 speakers talking about the most important economic relationship India has in the East, in East Asia, our relationship with Japan, which encompasses all aspects of trade, economy, investment, and technology. We have in the 4 speakers experts, and the first speaker who will set the tone for the discussions will be our ambassador in Tokyo, Ambassador Deepa Gopalan Vadva, who is an expert in the region, being a fluent Mandarin speaker, has served in Beijing, and she has done a number of other things, including enormous amount of work on multilateral issues, including being head of our UN division. Before she moved on as ambassador to Sweden, she has worked with the other important region as ambassador in Qatar and took over in Tokyo 2 years back. Thereafter, we'll have 2 eminent Japanese speakers, Mr. Katsuo Matsumoto, Deputy Director General and Director for India and Bhutan, South Asia Department, Japan International Cooperation Agency. He is a BA in Law and an MA in International Affairs from Columbia University. He's worked in Bangkok, in Malaysia. He's worked in the Mekong region, in Bhutan. He was involved with the East-West Corridor project in the Mekong sub-region, the Bangkok Metro, and the rail tube crossing projects in Turkey. And he will use his experience to talk to us about a number of areas of cooperation that are possible between India and Japan. Thereafter, we have an eminent academic and a member from Director of Industry and Research for JETRO, who's done a Master's of Law from University of Chicago. He's an expert on industrial policy, trade policy, and energy policy, and has worked with MITI. Finally, we'll have the conclusion drawn up by my eminent senior colleague, Ambassador Prakash Shah, who has been ambassador in Tokyo from 1992 to 95, and also our permanent representative in Geneva and in New York. He's also been member of the Indo-Japanese Eminent Persons Group, and also later the co-chairman of the Indo-Japan Business Council. He is just now working in the Council for Business and Strategic Analysis. Without further ado, let me request Ambassador Vadva to come, Deepa Vadva to come and set the stage for the rest of the discussion to follow. We are starting some 20 minutes late, so we'll try and curtail our discussions as far as possible. Thank you.
Dr. Majumdar, Ambassador Sanjay Singh, Dr. Vidya, Dr. Gupte, Ambassador Devre, Excellencies, Ambassadors for various ASEAN countries and from Bhutan, distinguished guests, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow panelists. It is indeed a great privilege for me to be here as part of this conference on the Look East, Act East policy, and also great joy to be on the Symbiosis campus for the first time ever. Very often, as ambassadors outside, when we talk about private universities of importance, we do talk about symbiosis. But to see at first hand this wonderful complex that you have here, the different faculties, and the way you are looking at the world is, I think, gives me a better idea of what you do, and to be able to ensure that in the job that I do as ambassador in Japan, I can help further for you to cultivate contacts with partner universities in Japan. Earlier, when Secretary East, Mr. Wadhwa, said that ASEAN lay at the heart of our Look-East policy, I recalled that recently in the Tokyo Declaration, which came from the recently held summit, the Prime Ministerial level summit in Tokyo between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Abe, there was also a sentence that said, Japan was at the heart of India's Look-East policy. And since Secretary East is my husband, this wasn't a matter of domestic dispute, but the fact that perhaps we realize now that our engagement with the East, that there can be many hearts that beat, and certainly that Japan has now evolved to be very, very important part of our Look-East and our Act-East policy. Now, I'll just very briefly talk about the Japan-India relations as it stands now. I mean, not much into history. It's been a close relationship, but I think unremarkable till about 2000. And in the year 2000, for various reasons, I think the changes in the world order, the emergence of India as an important economic hub, there was a reappraisal perhaps from the Japanese side of the importance of India, and we had what has been established as the global partnership between Japan and India, which followed on the visit by an important Prime Minister of Japan for us. It was Prime Minister Modi. 6 years later, this was scaled up and enhanced to become a global and strategic partnership, whereby we recognize the fact that there were strategic convergences for India and Japan, which were also restricted not only to the region, not only bilaterally, but also to the world. Recently, when Prime Minister Modi visited in September, this was further enhanced into a special strategic and global partnership. And while these might look as just diplomatic semantics for a lot of people, it says something else, that this is a very special relationship. It has evolved into a very multi-dimensional relationship. And I think both for Japan and India, this relationship is certainly our priority as far as our foreign policy is concerned. In looking at the relationship, I will look at the normal three pillars that characterize a relationship, a bilateral relationship with a country. One is the political, the economic, and I will say the others, which is the soft elements of it. Insofar as the political relationship is concerned, in 2006, when we upgraded our relationship into a global and strategic partnership, a strategic and global partnership, we added an element to it, which was that the prime ministers of our two countries would meet in annual summits. And why has this been important? This has been important, first, the significance of it, that India is the only country in the world with which Japan has such a mechanism, that our prime ministers meet every year. What happens in a situation where prime ministers meet every year is that I think all the rest of the government machinery, and beyond that into the private sector, we all work so that at each meeting you can add some value to this relationship. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in these annual summits. And thereby, at every summit over these years, we have been able to widen the areas of engagement. We've been able to deepen the areas of engagement where there's existing cooperation between the two countries. So, this has been really an incremental relationship, and there has been very, very positive growth in it, which is there for all of us to see. So this has been an important part of our relationship, the annual Prime Ministerial Summits. Every relationship between two countries needs to have the support of the people, it needs to have the support of governments, it needs to have the support of political parties. And I'm happy to say that the India-Japan relationship is one in which there is bipartisan support on both sides, of the political parties on both sides, across the board, for strengthening the relationship. So right now, as we speak, Japan is going to the polls. Tomorrow, the elections. I mean, I think the outcome is fairly well known. But whatever be the outcome, whether it is in India or in Japan, you know, there is a certain confidence that the relationship is mature enough and will grow no matter who is the political party that is in power. And the other and very important element, I think, of the political relationship as it has evolved is elements on the strategic front and new elements that are added to it. One of cooperation in the area of defense. Here again, starting from almost nothing, we have now evolved to a situation where the two countries are close enough that we have annual naval exercises. We have signed a defense cooperation agreement when Prime Minister Modi was in India, was in Tokyo. And we are now looking at something much deeper than that. That is to sign an agreement where we will actually talk in terms of transfer of defense equipment and technologies and take the whole relationship to a qualitatively different level. So this really is the political relationship. But it is, I think, the economic relationship with Japan that catches everybody's eye in. And this part of the relationship has been an important it's been very important for India because we have long looked to Japan as the one country in Asia that could really help us transform our economy and help with our economic development. On the economic side, there have been three pillars of our economic engagement. There was one which predominated the relationship. It dominated the relationship for a very long time, and that was ODA. We have with us here Deputy Director General Matsumoto from JICA. JICA has been really one of our long-standing partners in the development of India. He's going to talk about some of the projects that JICA has done, is doing, and will be doing, particularly in the areas of connectivity. Cumulatively, from the time they began, which was in 1958, we were the first recipient of ODA from Japan. We have cumulatively got about $40 billion from Japan as part of ODA. You perhaps have heard of the mega infrastructure projects which are at the moment crisscrossing India. One is the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, and the other is the Chennai-Bengaluru Industrial Corridor. These are huge corridors which will sort of envelop about 20 to 30% of the population of India and affect certainly the economic development of those areas. The DMIC, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, is much more ambitious. It's almost a $100 billion project in which Japan has a stake, actually a 26% stake in it. And now we have the Chennai-Bengaluru Industrial Corridor. So what really do the ODA projects seek to do? Fundamentally, build infrastructure in India. I think this is really an important area, and I think there's no better partner for India than JICA and Japan in helping us to identify the areas of our weakness and work with us to build this infrastructure. The other aspect of our relationship is trade. I think we heard before from one of the speakers that we have entered into a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, CEPA, with Japan a couple of years ago, 2011. I'm afraid that bilateral trade figures don't say much because they are at about $16 billion. In fact, have slid a bit over the last 2 years. But one positive aspect from the point of view of the Indian ambassador is that Indian exports have grown. There's much more we can do. Several years ago, we said that we should achieve $25 billion worth of bilateral trade. by 2015. I think the date will come and go and it will not happen. But we do have a representative of JETRO here, who I think is going to talk also to us about the prospects of trade and of investment. Now, the third leg, investment, and that is the most important thing. Because what we really look to Japan is we look for investment, and in terms of investment, we are looking at not only financial investment, but we're also looking at technology that Japan is so famous for. There have been several good developments in the last couple of years. And one of it is that the number of Japanese companies in India has really grown about fivefold in as many years, and now stands at over 1,000. There are about 10 to 15 companies per month from Japan that are looking to come to India and invest and set up offices in India. This is a great opportunity, particularly for the young people over here. I believe several of you learn Japanese, and I think Japanese companies are going to be far more visible here on the Indian horizon, and there are going to be a lot of opportunities for those of you who know Japanese and are interested in Japan, in Japanese companies. So during this, the last summit at which Prime Minister Modi was in Japan, as you perhaps know also, the importance of Japan, that Prime Minister Modi decided to make Tokyo the first halt, the first official visit outside the South Asian region, thereby signifying the importance of Japan in the relationship, in India's relations with different countries of the world. And one very major announcement that came out of this, what we call the Tokyo Declaration, was the setting up of a Japan-India Investment Promotion Initiative. And Prime Minister Abe announced that he would make available and try to realize $35 billion of investment into India over a 5-year period, with a doubling of Japanese companies in India over the same period. Now, this is really a large figure. And the challenge before us is how to ensure that we in India are able to provide an enabling environment which will make it easy for these companies to come. And I must say that this is not just numbers and words. Prime Minister Modi, after returning from Japan, has immediately ensured that action is taken. One, he has set up a Japan Plus office in his own office, which is got a couple of Japanese and a couple of Indian senior officers. And this is to facilitate, in fact, to give special treatment to Japan and Japanese companies who look to India. The other thing that has happened is that there is a huge coordination exercise headed by the Cabinet Secretary himself, and we are looking at not only the various proposals or identifying areas of interest, the kind of industries we want to come from Japan, but we're also looking at the issues that Japanese companies face with a view that how we could help to resolve these issues. There are very, very interesting projects in the pipeline. In fact, the Tokyo Declaration came along with a fact sheet for the first time, which was called India-Japan Partners for Common Development. And a reading of this, and I would say particularly the young people can go and see this on the net, it's a whole listing of the projects, and then you realize the width, the breadth of the relationship, the India-Japan relationship, in the various areas that we have ongoing bilateral projects. And also, this Tokyo Declaration says about the new areas in which we're looking at. And important among them, which again will will have a transformational effect on India, I think, are areas such as the setting up of smart cities, certainly, environment-related projects such as the cleaning up of our water bodies, but industrial cities, special Japanese industrial cities. And there are a whole lot of other such projects, energy, particularly clean energy, where we are going to focus in the next 5 years, certainly to be able to attract investment, but also just by themselves, because I think these are areas which are certainly of importance to India, and these are areas where Japan has proven strengths. The third element of the relationship is, I think, the soft area, which is also areas such as education, cultural ties, perhaps in a way connectivity. And here I'm not talking about connectivity which will be spoken to by my other speakers, but connectivity between the people of India and Japan. And we heard earlier about the importance of tourism. Now, it is actually a fact that while all Japanese do know that Buddhism came from India, I think somehow we are really quite far away from them. And we have to bridge, we have to bring that closeness. There is a general positive assessment of each other from both countries, but it's important for us to be able to bring the two countries closer, and I think that by itself will help. Business will help political linkages as they develop. So there is a huge agenda before us. I must say that as ambassador in Japan, this is perhaps one of the best times ever in our history to be there, simply for the reason that there is such a great interest in both countries in each other. There's such a great deal of receptivity in both countries, and that really helps you to be able to move the relationship forward. Therefore, I think, to begin with, where I end where I start to say that Japan certainly seems to be a very important element, if not entirely the heart of India's Look East and Act East policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Wadhwa, for a comprehensive look at Indo-Japan relationship. And if I have had experience of working with Nalanda University, on which a very eminent Japanese scholar is on the board. And he guides the Nalanda University on the educational side, while JICA has been providing connectivity to Rajgir from Patna by building roads there. So now may I invite Mr. Katsuo Matsumura to speak more about this. Matsumoto, sorry.
Well, thank you, Chairman. And distinguished guests, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to be here to speak on behalf of the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. Well, as a development agency of Japan, it is my very pleasure to share our experiences and views about the regional connectivity issues, not only in South Asia, but also Southeast Asia. I was supposed to make a presentation in the next session, connectivity. So my title of the presentation is Regional Integration and Connectivity. But because of some character of this session, there's a Japan session, I'm very happy to speak instead in the connectivity session. Well, the South Asian countries has been our major development partners. And the fiscal year 2013, almost half of the JICA's loan commitment was for this area. Well, India has been our largest development partner in the past 10 years. And now almost 70 development projects are ongoing. And from the 60s until now, the total number of the projects we are financing is almost 230. It's including like a metro project in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, and Kolkata. And not only the large-scale infrastructure project, but also some like a small scale, including the poverty reduction projects like irrigation, water supply, sewerage, and the reforestation are also under our finance. Why we are so good partner with South Asian countries? One reason is that because of the really large development needs of the countries, and also the relatively good economic performance of such countries. And also, of course, the good relation between Japan and the South Asian countries. Well, if we can see the development trend in the world, we sometimes may call the present situation as an Indo-Ocean age. In the last quarter of the 20th century, the center of the gravity has moved from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The west coast of the United States, Japan, the four tigers in ASEAN, and also China became the major economic powers driving the global economy at the time. But now, in the first quarter of the 21st century, I really believe that the world economy is shifting its center from the Pacific to this area. So I call it the era of the Indo-Pacific. The Pacific that continues to play the important role still, but it is being connected more and more with the emerging economic powers along with the Indian Ocean, from South Asia to the South Asia, and also finally to Africa. We believe that to enhance the connectivity between the South Asia and the Southeast Asia with context of this India's Look East policy is really timely and appropriate in this sense. So the screen is now showing our experience in the Southeast Asia first. JICA has been working for the regional integration of the ASEAN and the Mekong region, and our funded projects have contributed to the strength of the economic integration, yes, including the supply chain network of the private sectors. For example, the second Mekong Bridge project. Oh, next slide, please. So pointer. It's pointer.
It's pointer.
Okay. Thank you. Well, so this is just a map of the say east-west economic corridor in the ASEAN, and also this is the southern economic corridor. Well, we financed the one bridge project over the Mekong River here, the border of Thailand and the Laos. And this bridge project was really saving the time of the delivery of the goods from Bangkok to Hanoi. It took almost 2 weeks by the maritime traffic. Now it is only 3 days by road traffic. And also smooth custom clearance was arranged by the 3 countries through good coordination. Well, now say vehicle from the Vietnamese can pass through the border of the Laos, and they can return to the Vietnam, and also the vehicle of the Thailand can pass through the border of the Laos, and they return to the Bangkok. And because of such kind of coordination, now the total time of the clearance is really shortened. And this is because of the really political will of the 3 countries. And not only the hard infrastructure, but also such kind of soft aspect like modernization of the customs system has been really the key to make the connectivity successful. And now we try to have such kind of initiative in Africa. This map shows such kind of corridor, the project in Africa, and we really had a good collaboration with each country to implement such kind of a cross-border project. So how is South Asia? In order for us to promote the connectivity project more actively in this region, we had a series of good push recently. The first push, as the ambassador said, that the agreement between Japan and India. So both prime ministers agreed on Japan's cooperation on the development of the northeast region of India. Well, JICA has conducted information collection survey for this context and selected the possible, the good project which can contribute to the good connectivity in the region. This is a part of our survey. We have surveyed about the flow of the goods at the border in this region. And we try to find a really possible project with some criteria, including the economic return and also how the impact on the residents and so on. This is a corridor from Nepal to Bangladesh. And this is also the corridor from maybe the Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. This is a more vertical one from Bhutan to Bangladesh. And we finally found 10 possible projects in India, northeast region. And we have started to discuss with also other partners like ADB and the World Bank how we can collaborate together to have a maximum effects through the good coordination. So they are just possible the route under our finance. So the second push is like open up the Myanmar, as you know. The new administration of the Myanmar, which was formed in March 2011, is furthering the reforms toward the democratization. Given this movement, the government of Japan changed its economic cooperation policy in April 2012 and has expanded its area of the support to this country. And several cooperation schemes were revitalized and utilized for the prioritized development project. In addition to the conventional field of like basic human needs of the people, including the minority ethnic groups, now JICA is working to support some like large-scale infrastructure to promote economic development. So they are just an example. This is kind of like a master plan of the road network inside of the Myanmar, and some of the road will finally connect to the road to the India and South Asia. And also, we try to support some like engine of the growth to make the connectivity really effective. This is kind of like an example of the project. It's a Tirawa SEZ. We are now financing the development of SEZ, and not only SEZ itself, but also some like surrounding infrastructure like a power supply, road network, and water supply has been financed by JICA. So such kind of like a node of the industry can also provide a good delivery of the goods and service to the other countries. And this is also the example of the project, I mean the Yangon Mandalay Railway project. This is also maybe part of the connectivity in this region. And because of such kind of like movement, the successful progress of the cross-border connectivity to ASEAN and Myanmar can also activate more to be connected by trilateral highway between edge of the east-west corridor of the ASEAN to the Yangon to the Imphal in Manipur. And this is not only for transport sector, but also the relative countries are talking about the network of the power and also maritime. And the third push may be the result of the SAARC summit in the last November. SAARC framework agreement for energy cooperation was signed by the foreign ministers, and it was agreed that the SAARC motor vehicles agreement and the SAARC regional railway agreement should be finalized soon. The Japanese government has organized Japan SAARC Energy Forum every year to analyze the issue of the power trade in this region and also make a recommendation on how to improve the situation. And we think that we have also some rooms to be involved more and more of this SAARC development. And such political will of the SAARC countries say how to revitalize the activity is also very good flowing wind to promote the regional cooperation in a stable and timely manner. And we believe that Japan's ODA can contribute to generating the good possible result in the Indo-Pacific age. I think we have several viable approaches. The first is using ODA is for the economic growth, as I mentioned, like example of the Myanmar. Well, we have a good experience in Thailand, for example. Maybe you know like Eastern Seaboard. Well, from the Bangkok to the Maptaput area, there are a series of the infrastructure development like interstate zone, road network, railway road, and so on. And from the master plan to the project, Japan was involved to develop, to utilize the ODA scheme. And from the 80s to the 90s, JICA supported efforts by Thai government to realize this matter. And at this moment, this area has been the second largest economic area next to Bangkok. Say, the Eastern Seaboard in Thailand has grown into large industrial area, and with 14 industrial complexes, 1,000 300 factories and 360,000 workers. So this is kind of like one example of the approach, how to develop the connectivity more effective. And also in Bangladesh, Prime Minister Abe announced to support the concept of the Bay of Bengal Industrial Growth Belt. We sometimes call it a Big B. Yeah, this the Big B is a grand design to promote the industrial agglomeration along with the Dhaka, Chittagong, and Cox's Bazar. Including some like prioritized sector, power, transport, and investment promotion. And we believe that such kind of like approach to develop the potential area or potential node will be really contributing to the more and more change of the tectonics of the development in this the area. And the second ODA-related approach in the Indo-Pacific may be to utilize the ODA to enhance human security. Economic growth is just a good way to reduce the poverty. But yet, growth without a human security framework could only widen the social divide. It means that it may increase the poverty. The Indo-Pacific age is just starting. And therefore, Japan needs to coordinate with partner countries in this region, particularly to help such kind of like people to support such kind of like project in the sewage, water supply, irrigation, agriculture, and also the slope protection along with the road and so on. So through them, every citizen, including the woman and the physically handicapped also, can be the beneficiary of such kind of connectivity project. For example, say when we finance a project like a Delhi Metro, we really request the Delhi Metro agency to adopt such kind of universal design from the viewpoint of the human security, so that any handicapped people can easily access to the metro. And finally, the third ODA approach is to utilize the assistance for peace building purpose in this region. The cross-border project, not only the road, but also such kind of power network, is the common asset of the region. And to create a cooperation framework and good coordination to implement the project is a key process of the confidence building. We believe that the connectivity in South Asia and between South Asia and Southeast Asia can contribute to the regional stability, which is really the foundation of the economic and social development in this region. So from now, the South Asia has been really the large impact the region in the world. So the Japan, as like a partner with the development, try to work and collaborate as much as possible. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matsumoto, for the very detailed presentation on connectivity. Connectivity is the key for economic development, and how economic development and how JETRO can help in it. May I now invite Mr. Abe to come and talk to us about it.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests. And thank you very much for the Biosis University for giving me a great opportunity to be present here. My name is Ichiro Abe. I'm start briefly introduce myself and JETRO, in which I'm belonging to. JETRO is a Japan External Trade Organization, which is a trade and investment promotion organization under the Japanese government, which is Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. And JETRO has offices globally, more than 70 countries and more than 100 offices in global. In India, we have 4 offices, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, and temporary office in Ahmedabad. Historically, we have been promoting export from Japan to global, but now we shift to investment promotion from Japan to global, of course including India, and vice versa, investment from India to Japan. Today, I would like to talk about the regional economic integration in relation with manufacturing or investment. I would like to begin with my kind of conclusion. By participating in the regional supply chain network, FDI, foreign direct investment, would come more, which is leading to the manufacturing growth. This is the basic conclusion of today's my discussion. When you look at the Asia, there are 4 major powers: China, ASEAN, India, and Japan, in terms of the manufacturing industries. However, I have some concerns or worries about this power balance among 4 industries regions. Historically, Japan came first, and China, ASEAN, comes next, and now India is growing, and Japan is kind of matured. So the worry is, can Japan survive, and can India grow? But I'm confident that to eliminate those worries, a supply chain-oriented trade policy. The trade policy matters, and supply chain-oriented trade policy needs to be laid out. So China, ASEAN, and India are all growing powers. The supply chain in this region will dynamically change. So it is very important, crucial, to seize hold of opportunities created in this growing area. And if India takes part in the supply chain in Asia, it opens up a lot of possibilities to significantly expand production in this country. So I'll repeat, the regional economic integration, participating in the supply chain network in Asia, is very important and should be better utilized. Next slide, please. Today, I would like to talk about those issues briefly. One is manufacturing export, the Make in India. And next one is the regional economic integration. And third one is the dynamic change and price competitiveness. This is the room and export opportunities. And lastly, the manufacturing hub, RCEP and LookWest. And before going that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the potential of India as a hub for manufacturing. As almost everybody agreed, India has a great potential to be a manufacturing hub, or export hub, because there are a lot of supporting industries. Compared to Japanese companies in other ASEAN countries, the Japanese companies in India procure more and more from local companies, which shows the strong industry base in India. This is number one. And the number two is, of course, the abundant young workforce, talent. And number three, the India's strategic location. I mean, the India is very close to the Middle East and Africa, as well as East Asia. Regarding the Middle East and Africa, the Indian export, almost 30% of the Indian exports is toward those regions. And regarding the East Asia, there are abundant of supply chain network. So India is in a position to better utilize those networks. And finally, of course, the potential of India is a rapid expansion of middle class, upper class, which has made the region more attractive as a consumer market. Next slide, please. So in order to materialize those potentials, of course, a lot of domestic reforms are vital and actually are going on. This is the Make in India policies under a Modi-led government. So ease of doing business comes first because a lot of regulations are there, unfortunately, and regulation is so complex. So in Japanese companies, somebody said that before building a factory, we need building a kind of warehouse to store the documents which is necessary to the regulations. And of course, there are other measures like improving infrastructure, tax reform, including the introduction of GST, and the streamlining license kind of thing. So those measures in Make in India is a very impressive and broad and powerful. However, next slide, please. I'm sorry. This is the FDI data from China. So this shows the importance of FDI. Even in China, more than half, or almost half, of exports are relating to the foreign direct investment. So in order to strengthen the manufacturing, succeed in Make in India, FDI is a key point. And those reforms are very difficult, but government is very keen on tackling this. If those reforms are materialized, is it enough for India to be a low-cost manufacturing? Unfortunately, this is the era of mega competition, global competition, and mega FTAs. So this is not, unfortunately, enough. And what is needed is the regional economic integration. This is today's main topic. Could you go to the next slide? This is about the supply chain in East Asia. So in East Asia, supply chain networks for cross-border trading of parts and components, as well as raw materials, have been established based on regional economic integration. According to survey of some consulting companies, when you look at the container flows in Asia, 59 million TEU, while in Europe, 9 million TEU, and in Pacific Oceans, in both ways, 27 million TEU, which shows in Asia it's the center of the supply chain, cross-border trade of parts and components. Next page, please. But unfortunately, in the trade of intermediate goods, India's exposure so far is very small. This is ASEAN plus 6. The total of the intermediate goods is growing very quickly, and red is the Indian portion. So if India comes more and more in the supply chain network, there is a tremendous room and opportunities for all Indians market. Next slide, please. And of course, connectivity is important. As Honorable Ambassador Wadwa and Mr. Matsumoto mentioned, the connectivity is very important. And we have Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, Chennai-Bangalore Industrial Corridor, and Mekong India Economic Corridor. So if we can see those project materials, then the connectivity will be enhanced more and more, which is, of course, help India to become a low-cost manufacturing hub. Next slide, please. From now, After discussing the regional economic integration, I would like to focus on the opportunity or room for export. This is the data conducted by JETRO from the Japanese companies in Asia. And India is second left. When you look at the red line from left to right, this indicates the ratio of exports from Japanese companies in each country. So India, 13.9%, second low, which means the Japanese companies in India selling their products and services domestically in the Indian market, which means there are more and more room for increasing export. And actually, Japanese companies are already using India as an export base. For example, auto sectors, Maruti Suzuki, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, all of them are exporting from India to West and some parts to East. And given the India's competitive advantage, I am certain that the export by Japanese companies will be further bolstered in the futures. Next slide, please. And this is data and comment from Japanese companies. When you look at the middle, I compare the same car, different price in different region. So in India, for particular car, production between the 8,000 to 13,000 US dollars. But when you look at the Thailand, this is going up from 12,000 to 15,000 US dollars. And when you look at the voice of automotive companies in the right row, they said 30% price difference between ASEAN and India by the localization. So India has a very strong price competitiveness. And when you go up the upper half, the supply chain is drastically changed. So now Thailand is a major automotive hub, and China is a major electronics production hub. But this will change in 5 to 10 years. For example, in auto, it's expanding to Mekong countries regarding the auto parts, and electronic devices also expanding to Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, and so on. And in the future, maybe in Myanmar. So the important thing is, the supply chain is dynamic, not a statistic. This is the important point. Next slide, please. So to summarize, the domestic reform, together with the supply chain network and inviting FDI, then India will be more and more strong in terms of the manufacturing hub and the low-cost manufacturing hub. And from the company side also, the company is in a competition in building a global supply chain. So whether or not the company can build an effective global supply chain severely and importantly affect their competitiveness in global. So in this context, India has a very strong potential to contribute to the global companies also. Next slide, please. Finally, I would like to talk a little bit about the institution of the regional economic integration. Some of distinguished speakers mentioned already about RCEP. RCEP is the FTA and economic cooperation among 16 Asian countries, which is under negotiation, and the target date is the end of 2015. So we have 1 year left. I believe that the RCEP will benefit India also if properly frameworked and India can better utilize the RCEP. Firstly, the RCEP itself will accelerate the development of supply chains centering on East Asia through unified trade and investment rules. This is number one. And number two is the RCEP will enable India to optimally procure parts and components and increase opportunities for supplying raw materials, parts, and products. And so this further strengthens a hub for low-cost manufacturing. And thirdly, regarding the service, which is the most strongest part of India. So by getting concession from other Asian countries, India can expand their services market, including IT-related. And this is very important because the supply chains in manufacturing is already there in Asia, so there are a lot of needs for services. This is number 4. Now, of course, there are concerns about RCEP. A lot of products will be coming from overseas, East Asia. But in RCEP, there are many, not many, but some, but important remedies, such as safeguards and the anti-dumping. So if we can properly set up those mechanisms and use them, we can make a balance between the promotion of export and manufacturing hub, as well as the well-balanced, inclusive framework of international trade. And I want to draw attention the left below part, the electronic company's voice. They said to go through the process of import, local manufacturing, localization export, regional economic integration through FTA is vital, which means Indian market is very huge, but for the Japanese companies, sometimes the Indian market is not big enough because most of them are selling the high-end products, which is growing in India, but still small. And once those high-end market grows, many competitors comes in. So it's very hard, although the market is expanding, but very hard to get profit. So the strategy of Japanese companies is a step-by-step approach. Gradually, they are coming. They start first, set up a kind of agency, import the products from overseas to India, and then set up an assembly or local manufacturing, and then localize, procure more and more parts domestically, and then finally export. In terms of this gradual approach, the regional integration through the FTA is, of course, important for the Japanese companies. So this is the overall story of my presentation. And I would like to conclude. As Honorable Ambassador Wadawa said, now the India and Japan relationship is very good. When Prime Minister Modi went to Japan on September, I went to Japan too, and JETRO organized an investment promotion seminar in Japan. And we have invited Prime Minister Modi to make a presentation about India. At that symposium, more than 3,000 or 4,000 people applied to attend the symposium. So the reaction are very positive, very enthusiastic. So what is important is to materialize on the ground this atmosphere. And JETRO would like to work hard to promote the partnership by trade and investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abe. And now may I invite Ambassador Shah to sum up the whole thing and give us the benefit of his long experience in dealing with Japan. And a word about Japan-India in the East Asia context.
Good afternoon, colleagues from Symbiosis, Ministry of External Affairs, Japan, and friends. When Ambassador Wadhwa gave you the details of what is the existing relationship between Japan and India, she mentioned, quite rightly, that our relations before 2000 were generally unremarkable. I was ambassador to Japan in the 90s, and it was hard work at that time to try and improve the Indo-Japanese relationship in a manner that we thought would have appeared to be the natural relationship between two important partners in Asia. Just to take one example, I don't think there was any visit of any prime minister during my stay between 92 and 95. And today, as Ambassador Wadhwa mentioned, prime minister visits between Japan and India are annual, with one prime minister visiting the other alternately every 2 years in each other's country. And visits by the prime ministers are, of course, great occasions for everybody else to get together and provide the kind of groundwork and the progress on the ground for the two prime ministers and for the summits to be able to not only show success but also give directives for what the future holds. I would like to recall here, and that was purely in relation to a question that was raised this morning when you asked them about it, is that in actual practice or in actual reality, Prime Minister Nehru, right in the beginning of our independence, made it very clear that it is necessary for security and stability in Asia for us to give Japan a position of importance. This is, I'm talking way back to the beginning of our independence. In other words, when we decided not to join the agreements which the victors in the Second World War imposed on Japan, because we didn't think that that would be a nice thing to do to a country which may have lost the war, but still was considered by us to be one of the most important pillars in the Asian security setup. It was something that has been successively followed by all prime ministers and governments in terms of policy. But as the gentleman pointed out there, it took many, many years for us to realize that this potential in the relationship between India and Japan needs also to be progressed on the ground. And ironically enough, whatever was proposed by Prime Minister Nehru has really been taken forward in an extremely strong way by Prime Minister Modi, even though you might hear the difficulties or the criticism from Nehruvian foreign policy from the present government. The difference that these agreement on prime ministerial visits make, and the fact that there has been a chemistry between our two prime ministers today, and one man's effort as the Prime Minister of India to go to Japan as the first country outside SAARC to visit, unlike some of our previous prime ministers which thought about generally going to Western countries or Russia as their first visits, is indicative of the fact that in the entire context of East Asia, he is talking not just, the Prime Minister of India, not in terms of look east, but act east, as somebody mentioned this morning. The relationship between Japan and India may or has been seen generally by Indians in terms of how much money Japan gives us and how much we utilize that money for our own growth. I think we need to see that relationship in a much larger context as put forward by the ambassador. India, Japan, China are considered by the rest of the world as the three major pillars of the Asian region, of the Asian security, of East Asia and South Asia. And it is only natural that these three countries need to get together in terms of making many of the problems in the world, both economic, political, security, terrorism, global change, etc., a reality for better terms or times for the generations like you. And this is where I think one needs to look at Prime Minister Modi's visit there, the return visit that Mr. Abe was here on the 26th of January, and these exchanges will continue. The point I'm trying to make here is that today the Look East or the Act East policy is only a fulfillment of what has long been a policy issue with the Ministry of External Affairs and the government. It is only in recent times that both the government and largely the private sector, the NGOs and the social sector, has begun to realize that the India-Japan relationship is a necessary, or growth in India-Japan relationship is necessary for the sake, not only for our economic, trade and investment relations, but also from the point of view of the security and stability of the Asian subcontinent. Even more, this relationship has a great impact on the countries in between India and Japan, and much of it is a part of ASEAN. ASEAN today has, as Secretary East mentioned this morning, a whole lot of relationship with India. India has become part of the APEC, part of the Asian Plus countries group. There may be a little delay in our establishing this relationship with ASEAN, just as we have delayed establishing relationship with Japan. And I can't help telling you that when I was High Commissioner in Kuala Lumpur in 1981, there was a special effort made by the then 6 ASEAN countries, led by Malaysia, to invite India for talks and to sort out the issue, in other words, to give special recognition to India. Unfortunately, at that time, we had a change in government, and obviously the new government's policies in the 80s were not to move forward in that direction. As a result, our signing of the agreement with ASEAN was delayed till 1996, and we may have missed a few years. But what I genuinely believe is that whether it is ASEAN, whether it is Japan, we need not really look backwards. We really need to look forwards. And this is something which the present government is very keen to do. What I have also noticed both in Pune and in Mumbai, where I spend a lot of time, and of course the rest of India, is that there is a huge interest in private sector to be able to work out trade and investment relationships with Japan, that efforts are being made in order to invite the Japanese companies to invest in India, to work in India with the Indians. And as we have heard from the representative of JETRO, doing business with India atmosphere is still something which troubles the Japanese companies, and that there is scope for improvement in it, not only because of criticism from Japan, but also from criticism of a lot of Western countries in response to the Prime Minister's appeal for more and more FDI. We need to take these suggestions or criticisms as suggestions from friends and do something on our own to improve whatever areas they find us deficient in terms of giving FDIs. But one of the things that I would like to mention here is that I hope that the Japanese companies are also given to understand that while there are large number of advantages in investing in India, those difficulties that they mention should be tested against the huge number of advantages that you have. And in a considering that we are a democracy as compared to many other countries in which the Japanese go, they need to adjust their involvement with India on the basis of the overall political and economic and cultural situation that they find in here. In other words, there is need for both. For example, when I was in Japan, I don't know if it is still true or not, the Japanese always told me, we'll come to India if you give us 100% ownership. At that time, our rules were a 76-24 maximum foreign, 74-26 maximum foreign participation. We did make an effort to attract some of the Japanese to come. I remember how Sony was given a special preference to give 100% ownership, and they did come to India at the time when I was ambassador there. But my point simply is that I used to keep telling them that if you really have difficulties after establishing yourself here in terms of some of the local issues like water, power, labor, etc., would it not be wiser for you to have 10 or 20% local joint venture partnership in order to enable some of those problems to be solved by the local companies where they have a much greater knowledge of how to function in state governments or in areas where this is established. In other words, 100% ownership may be a culture of the Japanese abroad and probably successful in some of the Asian countries. There is a need for both sides to be able to look at each other's benefits rather than each other's difficulties in order to be able to come up with solutions that would enable not only the Japan-India relationships to grow, but also benefit the entire Asian subcontinent, particularly the Asian countries in which both Japan in a big way is present and where India's relations are growing. Japan and India are natural partners. We have a policy right from Jawaharlal Nehru to consider it as an important country to be given importance. There is also the fact that I was ambassador there and I have a lot of contacts with them. So I may have a natural preference for Japan when it comes to India's relationship with Japan. Japan may have certain difficulties with another of our big neighbor, China, just as we have with our big neighbor in Pakistan. But these are issues that I am sure, politically and otherwise, the two countries will be able to work out, if not resolve. And the great benefit of the Japanese is that even if you look at any of the major issues that we are facing, whether it is border problems, whether it is entry of India into the United Nations, or whether it is overall question of looking at world issues, etc. Japan and India have much less in terms of conflict than any other two countries in this area. And by putting that last thought there, may I also point out to the excellent presentation given to us on connectivity, because as we have been saying right from the beginning in the morning, almost everyone has said it, including our chief guest, Mr. Gadkari, that connectivity is one of the most important things in terms of raising this relationship. We talk about trade, we talk about investment, but as our experience goes, connectivity by itself increases both trade and investment, and that connectivity has to come both in air services. I mean, it is pathetic that today we have no direct flights to Myanmar, for instance, from either Delhi or Mumbai, or we have some of the areas pointed out, Indonesia, no direct flights to Indonesia, which is the country after India, the fourth largest country after Japan, China, and India. So these are very important presentations that have been made. It is my hope that both the government of India, the ASEAN government, and the Japanese government will pay a lot more attention to the connectivity issues. I have a lot of faith in the recent exchanges between India and Japan, particularly during and after the visit of our Prime Minister there, to hope that the ACT East Asia policy, including Japan, is something that is going to be not just talk, but also a reality. With these words, I thank you very much for the invitation given to me. I don't want to take over the subject from the chairperson, but perhaps if you have any questions, I'm quite sure the panel members would be happy to take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Shah, for putting this session and summarizing the results of the session. It's been my privilege to have chaired this very long session on trade and investment, which give ballast to India's involvement in what is being termed as the Asian century. What we do in trade and investments and economic relations with Asia and Asian countries will determine our position in the future in this growing and important continent. We are all participants in this process, and in this industrial and economic heartland of India, Western India, I hope that the students who are here and the other practitioners and the business people who are here will take heart and participate in this national effort to create and subserve Indian interests by taking Indian economic and trade investment interests forward. We are in an exciting phase at this juncture when Asian countries, including India, have all developed niche capabilities and products which we can exchange and thereby expand trade and our own economic potential. With that, I thank Symbiosis University for giving us and this panel an opportunity to talk to all of you about this. Before ending, let me once again thank Mr. Yadavendra Mathur, Dr. Ajit Ranade, Ambassador V.S. Seshadri, Mr. K.N. Radhakrishnan in the first session before lunch, and in this session, Ambassador Deepa Gopalan Vadva, Mr. Katuso Matsumoto, Mr. Ichiro Abe, and Ambassador Prakash Shah for their very wise words to all of us this morning and this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Singh. May I call upon Dr. Vidya to felicitate the speakers?
So before I felicitate all the dignitaries on the dais, I'd just like to take a minute because I'm so happy that we could have a special session on Japan, which was really something that I wanted to do, but because of all the lengthy sessions, it wasn't possible for Shivali and Ambassador Devre to arrange it. But nevertheless, I think we should thank Minister Gadkari because he preponed his coming to Symbiosis, and therefore we could have this session. As a university, we really want to set up a Japan Area Study Center. We are already working towards it. We have a large number of students from Japan coming in. Every year, about 35 students come to Symbiosis to study for a year. And some of our students also go, but not in large numbers because of the language problem. We have a school of foreign languages where over 100 students, in a year, 100 students study Japanese as a language. And of course, we also teach at some of our business schools. It's not a very popular language, but we are trying to push. And we hope that some of our MBA students and the undergrad students get opportunities to do internships in some of your companies in Japan. So I'm so happy that there's a nice panel here, and we hope we can take this forward by establishing a Japan Area Study Center. Thank you.
We have a short tea break and we come back at 4 o'clock.